Welcome to episode 104 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies, plus tips, apps, and gear. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg. My co-host, Warren Sklar, is here, and he's beaching. How you doing, Warren?
I'm beachy, very beachy today. Yeah, good. We have a in Belmar, New Jersey, which is the beach. We have a house, and I am at the house. So we try to do it on the weekends, and it's a nice getaway.
Be a short week next week. So, and I want to welcome back my returning guest, Mr. Chuck Joyner from MacVoices. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm good, David. I am not beaching, but I am good.
I am not either. So, figured this would be a great time to have you here because my head's exploding, I can tell you right now. So all the information that we have absorbed over the last 4 days about the WWDC, we'll definitely talk about it. That's going to be pretty much our show today, is just what was announced, and just kind of gets our views of where Apple's going, and we'll definitely have a good lively conversation. I'm talking to you from my Mac Mini because my MacBook Pro decided to not power up anymore, so I'm very lucky to have that, so I'm very happy. And I'm also want to give a shout out to Rogue Amoeba, because I was panicking because I lost all my sessions in Audio Hijack, and within 15 minutes they replied back to me to tell me where they're located. I didn't know, so we're definitely going to give them a shout out. They're awesome. I'm sure, Chuck, you agree with that too. You use a lot of their products too.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul and his team do just an absolute amazing job. It's like voodoo. You know, every time you think, okay, there's nothing else they can do with audio, they come up with something that you really can use, and you didn't even think about the fact that you needed it.
Customer support top notch. They literally replied back to me in 15 minutes. I mean, it's unheard of. So anyway, I want to give them a shout out and thanks. And we're up here and giving you a good sounding podcast because I got my sessions back. So let's go ahead and let's just get started. We got a lot to talk about, and of course, really not going much of the news is going to be this week. Of course, is going to be WWDC because a lot of things were announced, and we're going to give you a lot of our thoughts here this week. We usually talk about in our topics each week, beta testing, and because Warren is, as we mentioned pre-show, he's always like living on the edge. He's using his Mac on Big Sur, and Zoom isn't working.
Max.
It's not. Oh, you have Max. That's right. Every Mac you own is on beta Big Sur. So, we noticed that beta iOS 13.6 beta 2 is still out there. And I'm not sure what Apple's going to do. I would assume that we're going to release that pretty soon here. I don't know. Have you heard anything, Warren, about that?
As far as releasing the production of 13.6, I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, the production of 13. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
this is kind of an unusual time doing parallel betas with old and new. So
it happens usually.
Of course, iOS 14 is.
Yeah,
out.
usually they'll. I mean, I say this every week, but they like to have their final polished, immaculate version of that last operating system, so they could retire it properly, because they know a couple of phones and devices won't update till to 14, so they like to make sure those guys are okay. Although there's not that many that could do. We'll go over the list, but there's most of the stuff that did 13 could do 14. So see how that goes.
Yeah. It'd be definitely interesting. And I said, you were worried about us talking about all this stuff here. I was going to hit the numbers right away. There was a great article. I know, Chuck, you posted this in MacVoices, the Facebook group from Mac Stories, the keynote by numbers. And the numbers were interesting, how they stood out before we really get into all this meat of all this. Couple things that kind of stood out to me about you guys, but Siri knows 20 more times of fax than 3 years ago. Messages has seen a 40% increase in messages sent, and a 2 times increase in group messages. So that kind of explains their group messages change. Emojis, of course, got to have more headwear, and 1 million apps are now are designed for the iPad, which is absolutely crazy. There's 20,000 apps in the Watch App Store now, and Safari is much faster on iOS as well as the Mac. And there's 23 billion developers. I didn't even know that. Did you know that, Chuck? 23 million developers. That's crazy.
I did not know that. It doesn't really surprise me because there are a lot of folks out there that, have one or two apps or are doing it sort of as a hobby. But still, 23 million is a lot of developers.
That's why you don't. That's why this virtual WWDC is probably very beneficial to many of them because, of course, only about how many people usually come to WW is about 3,000-4,000 more than that, 10,000.
Oh boy, I have really up
5-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
think between 5 and 10. Yeah,
and of course you have to differentiate between how many actually go to WW itself versus what come to San Jose. So
I think Dave Hamilton actually said, I think Dave Hamilton said it was 5,000, and then he also said there was about 5,000 that go to the area that don't go to the to the actual conference.
That hang out. So
the all conference.
They did mention this during the keynote about signing in with Apple. That Kayak was saying that there are 2 times more likely to sign up with sign in with Apple than they will just signing in natively. And then they did do a demo on that about converting over the account from the direct sign in to using sign in with Apple. So security is a big thing. I definitely think they had a lot of security discussion about it, which was great.
And people, I mean, I've trust Apple more than any of the other options, but I still like to have control of my passwords. But a lot of people, I mean, I'm sorry, they still are lax about some of that, and so sign in with Apple is absolutely the best option if you're going to use any of the services, as opposed to signing in with Google or sign in. What are some of the Facebook, of course. I mean, do we need to even say that?
I would never do that.
What could go wrong?
Come on, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, I know you're a big Facebook guy. You probably use it on a lot of yours.
I've been on it all the time. I mean, I've been on it for a while, and I do sign in with Facebook. But the good thing is they said the sign in with Apple will now take over some older sign-ins with. So I think it said you could replace if you previously signed in with another service, you could easily swap that out somehow in iOS 14. So I might do that at some point. But yeah, so I was just gonna say iOS 14. There's a news story that just came out that shows that TikTok is getting in trouble too, because iOS 14.
Yeah. That just came across the wire as we just came on there. If you read it quick, I know it said that they got caught for
every few seconds
people's clipboards.
It copies and pastes the clipboard from something, and nobody really knows why. So it just shows you that iOS 14 and even Big Sur and all that is, and I've seen this in Big Sur too, where it actually tells you it's doing more things in the background. A little banner comes up and shows you that. So a lot of these applications that were kind of sneaking things along might have to think of another way to go.
I don't understand. I just don't understand in the world today with as many people as has eyes on this stuff, why they think they can get away with it, or if they just figure we can get away with it long enough to capitalize on it. But as soon as it comes out and you're caught doing this stuff, I mean, I know it seems to roll off Facebook like Teflon, but the rest of the world, not so much. And you really then start to look seriously nefarious as if, what are you trying to catch? Are you trying to catch credit cards? Are you trying to catch logins? Are you trying to catch embarrassing information or photos from people and then if you do that, get it, what are you going to do with it? And I mean, to the developers out there that do this stuff, it's one thing to be sloppy. It's a whole nother one to appear to do it maliciously.
I think it's more sloppy. Like, the whole thing with Zoom, when Zoom first came out, it was exposing all their laziness. And I think a lot of it is just laziness on their part too. And I'm sure TikTok is going to come back and say, listen, we're not taking any of your stuff. We're doing this because this is how we find out where you're going to watch next or something like that. That's possibly part of the application. And then people will say, okay, I guess it's fine. But I think it's definitely just they are making workarounds in a lot of cases when they develop to do things that probably would be a lot easier to do if they had to do it a different way. That's my hope, at least. But you might be right. It could be just trying to steal my credit card.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. I wanted to, like I said, we'll skim through a lot of stuff. I know a lot of this has been talked about all week, but I think there's going to be many listeners here that are going to be interested to hear what our views are on it. So let's go ahead and move forward here. And the first thing I want to really touch on first is really compatibility. That really was never mentioned during the keynote, and you kind of have to find out about it later. So I figured let's tell everybody about it right ahead of time. Impressive list for the iPhone. It's going to start from the iPhone 6S and the 6S Plus, which is unheard of. That's a 5-year-old phone, iPhone, and then also the iPhone SE first generation. The old phone is going to be compatible as well. Of course, all the rest of them going from 7 all the way up to the 11 and the 10R, all the rest of them that are within the last 3 or 4 years. So, interesting compatibility list, I think. What do you guys think?
I agreed. I mean, I think it's great. This just, once again, it shows the value of Apple devices. That contrary to what some people seem to think, Apple does try to reach back fairly far without crippling the need or the ability to move forward. So I actually have a 6S Plus that I will use as a camera sometimes, and so I'm delighted. I'm shocked and I'm delighted both that it will go to iOS 14. If I'll be even more shocked if it goes much beyond that, because at some point you got to put an end to it. But yeah, this was outstanding.
Yeah, well, no, there's your excuse for you to put beta on a phone there, Chuck.
You trying to kill my camera, David?
Oh my gosh! And then we'll go through all 3 of the devices that were talked about in our world here. WatchOS 7, you got Series 3, 4, and 5. So anything before that will be at the end of the road. That will not be compatible. And then the iPads, the Air 2 is out, and anything older than that is going to be out. The Mini 4, Mini 5, those are also covered. And then of course all the iPads are going up across the board up to the Pros, including the first gen Pros are compatible. I got the first gen Pro is working on right now. So, that's what's compatible. But here we're gonna have to listen in the show notes of some of the highlights here. I just wanted to just call them out real quick and what we saw. Warren, what did you think of the widgets on the screen? You've been using them since you've converted over?
Yeah. I've I put the scrolling. I can't remember the name of it. The one that they showed during the keynote. That one keeps bypassing the name.
Yeah, with the stacks.
Right. So I put that one on there on my on my main screen, and just today I like it a lot actually. And just today I'm like, every so often I'll unlock my phone and it's on my second screen with all my app folders in there, and I'm like, I really missed that widget, and I'm like, wait a second. Just add it again. So I put you could do that. You could add the same widget on all your screens if you really want, if you like that kind of rotating thing, which is really cool. I looked into some of the others. I tried, I wanted a widget that will tell me like what's playing on my music, and that's not really there. It kind of tells you what's played last. So I think they need to come up with a lot more. But once they do that, and third parties do it, it's gonna be really cool. Of course, it's been on Android. We talked about before. Android had the exact same thing for a while now, and they're a little more advanced with their widgets too. They can be resized, and they could be. There's a lot of them, a lot more of them. But iOS did a good job, doing it, and it makes it. It's the good part about it is when people see it. It's different. It looks different than the way the home screen used to look, and they're interested in it. And it definitely, makes people interested in going to the new operating system. So, because it's total visual change for them. They're like, hey, how'd you get the weather on your screen like that? Let's get iOS 14.
Now, Chuck and I were both on Mike Potter's podcast for Mac Guys Only on Monday, so we got to actually do the reaction time. So we reacted as it occurred. So, Chuck, what was your first reaction to the widgets when they announced those? I thought that was really cool.
I like it, David. I mean, I think any time that Apple can give you the option to put the information that is important to you or that you can make use of on the screen in a convenient way, I think it's a win. I mean, we all remember the widgets that there was a widget layer almost to Mac OS, and then that went away. And I always kind of liked that because it was like your own private dashboard you could pop up. The trouble is it seemed like that the widgets there never really caught the imagination of enough developers to have the customization that you would like. And I feel like here with iOS, there's a better chance of that with, what'd you say, 20-something million developers. Somebody's going to decide to play with the widgets. And so, yeah, I think this has a lot of potential to put information I want to see front and center. I do have a little concern with just the fact that I have limited screen real estate, and I feel like my home screen is already crowded enough with things I use on a regular basis. So I kind of envision this almost as, I might have a widget screen as my main screen just for quick glances, and then a swipe over to go to my actual home app screen. But I'm not running the betas. I don't even know if that's possible. So, but yeah, I think I've had a very positive reaction to it.
Yeah, and even though I have it on an iPhone, I mean, I'm thinking in perspective, looking what a normal person who just reads through a lot of what's been discussed. I think that's where Apple came across and decided to create the App Library. The App Library is going to can allow you to actually do away with a lot of your home pages, or you can hide them and switch entirely to this list-based view because it comes in a grid view with large squares, and it breaks it down by suggestions recently added, utilities, and in different categories. But the only thing I'm not too keen about is the fact that they're creating these categories based on what they think it should be, and not where we can create folders like we've been doing for the last 10 years of iOS or so that allowed us to do groups of apps as opposed to that. But I see where they're going because that's all they really complained about was the fact that you have 8 pages worth of apps to go through. Don't you think, Chuck?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I understand completely. And I know that I'm in the minority because I gave up on folders a long time ago with just a couple very rare exceptions. Because after a while, you felt like you were spending all your time organizing your apps into folders, and then you couldn't remember where you put it. And there are those apps that might bridge 2 categories of yours, and then now where did I do with it? And so I just adopted the idea of, okay, if I need it, I'll search for it, and there it is. And in some of the discussions this week that we've had, there are 2 problems with that. First of all, if you can't remember the name of the app, you're kind of out of luck. The second thing is, and this is one that I'm constantly guilty of, if I download a new app, now I can't find it because I'm not.
Yeah, that's how it's been for me.
Yeah,
I can't find
it. I end up having to search for it. Or if I like, earlier today I did some updates and I'm looking at apps that are updating. It's like, I really don't need that anymore. Now I got to go try to find it on which screen to get rid of it. And so if it went into a folder, at least that would give me a starting place. But that is not the best use of this, I don't think, or a good reason to adopt it.
And Warren, you've been using the App Library, obviously, for the last few days like I have. What's been your initial usage of it? Are you happy with it? Not happy with it?
No, I like it. So it shows all your apps, and I like the listing. You could go up on top and search what you need to search for if you don't know the name of it. But I like that it's in alphabetical order, which is something I've wanted on iOS home screen for like ever. And a couple weird things. Actually, one weird thing is if you just as a FYI for anybody running a beta, if you hide an app prior to this, the app view doesn't care. So if you hide one of your apps for whatever reason, the suggestions on the last page in the app view doesn't keep that hidden. It doesn't care. It will. I think they'll fix that because I think that people hide apps. They want to hide an app. So, what else can I tell you about the app view? It does. Are we talking about also the suggestion box on the bottom as well? Yeah, it does a good job on categorizing what it knows. Some apps it has no idea, and there's no way to fix it. So if you have an app that should be in one of the categories, you can't move it into the right category of that box, which is you have no control, which is kind of annoying because it does such a good job with the other ones that you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to use it, I'm going to use it. But if it's not going to work for all my apps, then I got to figure that out too. But yeah,
it's funny that I just decided to start randomly just downloading apps. I'm not using them on this phone, my beta phone, and I'm looking at the category creativity, and it has the camera, the photos app, and then TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm creative with, I guess, creativity for TikTok.
Watching videos is creative. It's not perfect. So, I mean, I think that's going to be a large uphill battle for Apple too. With so many apps out there, I don't know how they're going to, manage that. How they're going to figure out what category. And some things don't, they transcend categories too. So what do you do with those? And then some things don't really even fit into any of the categories. And what do you do with those? And I think, even trying to manage it manually, which if, before this I had, folders, and I did, probably whatever you guys and Chuck does, which is I created my own lifestyle folder. I created my own games folder, and I moved the stuff into that folder too. And even that is kind of, at that point you got in your mind what you want it to be. And now Apple's come along and said, well, let us try it too. So it's not going to be an easy thing for them to do, I don't think.
No, and you're right. I love the alphabetical list view. All you do is drag down, and you have an A to Z listing of all the apps. You didn't have that before, and then the search bar is at the top there too, so you can look as well. So that's that. A couple other things we'll mention. I think that stood out. The Siri UI now is compact. Because we're happy, and of course I shouldn't have said that because it just went off on my computer. She just comes up with a small little icon now at the bottom of the screen, which is good. And the same thing with the call notification, which was great. And, whenever someone would call you, it'd be a full screen, then it would interrupt whatever you're doing. Now, if you're in the middle of something, like if you're on Safari or in an app or whatever, it's just going to show the small little compact notification bar that came up on the top. You were pretty excited about that, weren't you, Chuck?
Yeah, in further thinking about it, I guess I have mixed feelings. I mean, obviously, I should have my ringer turned up if I'm expecting a call or wanting to take it. But it's more than one time I've looked over when I'm doing something else and realized, hey, there's a phone call coming in, and I had the ringer turned off. And this will eliminate that. But I confess I've also been in the middle of things where it's just like, okay, if I could just. It takes me away from it. If I could just do 2 more key clicks or hit a send button, and then it's done, and I can answer the phone, and I don't forget to go back to it. So I think if I have to trade off the two, I'll take it the new way and just have to learn to turn my ringer on. Pay more attention to that.
Yeah, it's just definitely going to be interesting. So, the other thing too is does the same thing with FaceTime, and the other thing I'll stand out. Speaking of FaceTime, is I can't wait for that to be my full-time device. Is the fact that when you use FaceTime and you have to go look at something, it's still going to show you. It's going to keep the picture in picture. It's going to show you while you're going to look at something and not put it in pause. Because all the time, anybody we talk to on FaceTime, we're always. You're paused whenever you're going to look at something, whether it be browser or wherever. So I'm glad they did that. Apple Maps, what really stood out was they've added the Power UI showing where all the power stations are for electric cars, except for Tesla. I think we mentioned that yesterday, Warren, that Tesla, who cares? And Guy was, of course, who cares?
Yeah, I care because I want a Tesla, but I also want the Apple integration with it. I can't have both. So
yeah, we can't. So, but cycling, it's got more guides than you ever could think of, and they improved the maps. And then, of course, they did add. I guess they're enhancing all the maps in other countries: Canada, UK, and France. I think were the three that were mentioned. So that was exciting. The Translate app was pretty exciting, and I've tried it, and we saw the demo on Monday during the keynote. It's very accurate, and it works really well. I was really impressed with it, in many different languages that are available as well. And I've tried it for quite a bit, and it's really accurate. And then you got the full screen mode, so you can show the person what you're saying as well as speaking it. So, did you have any? Were you surprised at this at all, or do you think it was good, Chuck?
No, I think I mean, Google's had not obviously as smooth as Apple's integration with the phone, but we've had pretty good Translate apps out there for a while. So it just makes absolute sense to put it on your phone. And you knew that Apple's going to try to do it right as far as not just the translation, but also the interface. And I think honestly, I was more as impressed with the interface design and the way that you can use it sort of in your own personal mode, or you can turn it around and show it to someone. It just makes perfect sense. It's like this is the way it should work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chuck, do you have any thoughts, Warren, on that?
Just it's going to come in handy when we're able to go places again.
Yeah, when we go places, I guess, right? The Messages app had quite a bit of overhaul, and in fact, it goes across the board. And Mac OS is going to have a much more robust, enhanced Messages app, similar to iOS, which we'll talk about a little bit here. But in the Messages app, you now can pin up to 9 conversations up at the top of the screen. Makes it easier to get to those conversations. I don't know if you guys, but when you're in long conversations and the texts are going back and forth, and half the time, and most of the time, they're not anything to do with you. This way, you actually can pin it so, like, if you're actually mentioned, it'll tell you. Otherwise, the text just go quietly. But you can. It also includes adding a emoji in there as well. And one thing they did add as an enhancement, I think everybody's going to be excited about, is the fact that you're going to be able to search emojis now and not have to thumb through the page to find the one that you want. So you can type in a word, and it's actually going to tell you what it is.
That's much better, because usually I just give up. Like I'll look for one particular emoji, and I'm like, screw it. Just the thumbs up will working. I guess. Thumbs up,
like I'm sure Chuck, you use thumbs up all the time. I know as we talk. So
yeah, but for the folks out there that are trying to learn the emojis, I think this is a great way to do it, because you have that on other platforms, and if you can integrate that. It always surprises me not only the growth of the emoji thing, but and I'll go ahead and say it, the age brackets. I mean, it's not just the kids; it's everybody has started using emojis, and I mean, I know probably 90% of the responses I send in texts are from my watch, and usually that's just a simple emoji. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or just a couple other standard ones. And they convey exactly what you need without having to, type it out.
I have a tip and trick for that.
All right, go for it.
The tip and trick is
you're the beta master, so.
Well, actually, this came over from the last one too, so it's been there for a while. But if you long press on a comment, you'll get a little thumbs up. You'll get a little row of actions that you could comment. You could it's not respond, but you could kind of like give a little thumbs up or a like in the actual comment without actually typing anything. So it's like a like button for the comment in the message, which I love.
iOS or watchOS?
iOS. So if you go into any message, and it has to be an iMessage, it can't be a SMS. But if somebody texts you and you just hold your finger, you hold your finger over the actual message itself. You'll get a heart, a thumbs up, thumbs down, a ha-ha, exclamation points, or a question mark. Yeah,
I've seen that, but I never adopted it as a regular usage thing. That
is like the best thing in the world now, because now
I use that all the time.
Yeah, now instead of like having to actually do the thumbs up or something like that, I could do that. It's even less interaction, which is perfect.
Right. I just replied to your message on your Chuck, and you see it. It's just got this simple thing right up next to the message, so you just that message.
Yep.
And it makes a little sound. The sound comes in a little different when you get that. So,
it pops. Great. Yeah, it's got a.
Yeah, it's great for people who don't want to deal with people too much.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the way it was put it, I guess.
Welcome to the Antisocial Podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. If you just kind of stare at your phone for a second, it will let people know that you don't want to talk to them. So that's another tip.
Yeah. And pretty much all those features we just talked about are included in the iPad as well. Although the widgets right now I think are still pretty new in beta. I mean, they didn't have a lot in iPad as of yet, right, Warren? I didn't see too much that you could do at the present time on the iPad. So
I think people were saying that the widgets, you can't even put the widgets in the same places as a phone. The widgets stayed to the left.
Can't. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stays left, right.
Doesn't really make sense to me, because that would be the place where you would want the widgets on the iPad with the bigger screen. Yeah.
Beta 1. But the two features that stood out for the iPad is they really bolstered a lot of the Apple Pencil support, much more accurate pencil. I haven't had a chance to do that yet because I don't have an iPad that has a pencil, or I don't have a pencil for the iPad I have that I'm testing. I'm not brave like Warren is. But the other feature that was really cool is that scribble, and being able to go up and actually go into a box, and let's say you're in Safari and you want to be able to scribble up Google, and you actually could write it in, and it actually translates it and it brings you to the website in a quick way. And then the other thing was really cool is being able to scribble erase a word that's in text, and it erases it, as well as being able to highlight it and being able to go back and edit it. So you're seeing a lot more improvements with the pencil. I also heard that the Logitech, the crayon or whatever they call it, the lower end of pencil that's for the lower end iPads is actually going to be able to utilize all those features too, which is really cool. Did you have any comment? That's right. I forget, Chuck, you don't have a pencil, so this is not much to you. So
I don't have a pencil, but I tell you what, first of all, some of these capabilities make me rethink that a little. But I was really, really happy to see that the Logitech pencil will support some of this stuff, because that will put that pencil in the hands of a lot of people who would not spend the money for a regular Apple Pencil, and give them access to some of these features, and maybe then suck them into wanting all the features of a full-fledged Apple Pencil. So I admit, I thought that was a really nice thing to find out. And the features are interesting, as we learn to interact with our iPads more. Some people still like the handwriting thing. So,
and then this hidden little box that was on the iPad OS grid when Apple was doing the keynote, it said it is change default browser and email client. And I said, I know I had just talked about that in a meeting a number of weeks ago. That I said I was hoping that would happen, and I guess it has, but it's not working yet because I haven't been able to find it. I don't think, Warren, you have it either, right? As far as being able to change it, I have a feeling that the app developers, Firefox, Edge, whoever, Spark as a mail app, can probably need to change code so it's able to change. So I bet that's coming. But interestingly, it was shown only in the iPad, not the iOS. So. What do you think? Would you take advantage of that? Are you happy with the standard apps?
I'm happy with Safari, and I don't use Mail. I use Gmail, so I use the Gmail app. So it would be nice to be able to change that over for those times when you say, okay, hit email, and I will not now have to go back out and launch the Gmail app. It'll just be able to open it for me. So it wasn't a huge thing, but it's just one of those little niceties that, they've listened and people wanted that. And so now you've got it.
Absolutely. And then we move on to Watch OS, new watch faces, new complications. So I can share a watch face with you, Warren. I know we'll be doing that all the time, right? Changing
constantly.
changing those.
I haven't changed my watch face in like 5 years, so I'm the wrong guy to talk to with that.
Yeah, and I don't do much either. I keep the one I have. I keep it on pretty much. So, and then the complications, which is actually new. They'll have some new complications, which is great. Do you mess with watch faces or complications, Chuck?
Not. Once I found what I want, I tend not to. But once in a while, something will creep on, or I'll see something, and it's like, that'd be really nice to have, and so I'll rearrange them a lot. It's sort of like your home screen on your phone. Once I get it set, I really tend to leave it that way, right up to the point that something changes, and then okay, now I'll make the switch. But I'm all for more complications, because again, it's like the thing we were saying with widgets. I want the information that I want easily accessible, and on the watch it's even more accessible than on the phone. So if I want the stock price on Apple stock price on my screen, that's where I want it, and I'd prefer to have it on the watch than on the phone. But yeah, I think the more they can do with watch faces and complications, I think the better. We all know people that want to build their own. They want to customize their own, and this is just another step in that direction.
And then they added sleep tracking, which I thought was really interesting. The sleep tracking is probably going to be one of the more important features they've added to the Watch OS 7. I guess what I understand is it's automatically measuring your sleep and time through accelerometer and gyro information. And Warren and I both have CPAP machines, so we kind of get measured anyway, because I have one that has technology to actually tell me how long I have slept. But I guess this will be interesting. I never wear my watch to bed or to sleep. I always put it on the charger for the night. So it's interesting to see how this will go. If it's if you use it for the day, I mean, how much battery life is going to be left to hold you out for the night, and then you have to charge it the next morning. So that's what I was kind of confused at how that's going to work. What do you think, Warren?
So after I updated the watch, I went into the app, and it asks you a whole series of questions. It just says what time do you usually go to sleep, what time do you like to wake up, asked you a few other questions, and then you could set it. And then once you set it, you could swipe up from the bottom. There's a complication of a sleep icon that you choose if you want to activate it. So then what happens, and I did it. Well, I sort of did it. So what happens is at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever time you tell it that you want to go to sleep, your watch slowly starts to dim until it almost goes off. And at first I'm like, I forgot I set it during that day, and I'm like, my watch is broken. It's not on anymore. So because I got the Series 5, so it turns off itself, and then at that point it's measuring your sleep. I was about to do it, and then I realized worrying about when to charge my watch the next day would keep me up at night, so it wouldn't work. So it would basically be the anti-sleep machine for me. So I might try it again. As you said, I have this CPAP machine. I also have a sleep number bed that also does things. And truth be told, I am probably the world's best sleeper. I don't have any problem sleeping. I take 3-hour naps during the day sometimes, and I could sleep all. I'm like a professional. My watch is you get stickers for activities. I get stickers for just sleeping. It tells me you got to. You are on you reached the February goal for sleeping, and it's only February 3rd. Yeah, it's only February 3rd, and you reached the goal already. So, so I'll play with it, but it's not something I really need.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And it also has that wind down feature where it helps you prepare for sleep. Well, I do that every night. I put a radio. I listen to the radio. I got one of those headband Bluetooth headsets that go around my head, and it's got a mask, so it keeps everything dark. And within probably about 20 minutes, I'm asleep. So,
the best thing with the CPAP, real fast, is my wife likes to sleep with the TV set on, and it drives me crazy. So I have the CPAP machine, and I have earplugs, that I wear it every night. And the best part is what you can put the covers completely over yourself because the CPAP machine is like a oxygen mask to the outside, so you can breathe easily. And I just kind of like cocoon myself, and it's I get the best night's sleep, and nobody even knows I'm there.
Chuck, would you use any of these things to sleep? I don't know how much you could follow up with that, but
No, I don't sleep, so that solves the whole problem right there.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I've played with sleep tracking apps before this. We knew this was coming because Apple a while back had acquired a sleep tracking tech company. Actually, one that I had interviewed at CES a few years ago, and then all of a sudden they just disappeared, and it's because Apple bought them. If you guys have sleeping issues with CPAPs, and all, I think it's great. I'm trying not to become a slave to some of this stuff because after a while, I think it almost defeats itself because it introduces a lot of stress. It's like, oh my God, I didn't get enough sleep last night, so I've got to get more tonight, or I've got to change my habits. And if you have a health issue, then absolutely, then you start monitoring and trying to find ways to solve it. But I'd say proceed with caution on this, unless you can just look at it as an interest point, and say, oh, I slept 6 hours last night, and then I only got 2 hours of quality sleep. Probably by that point you are suffering some symptoms if that becomes a regular thing. But yeah, I think it's great. It's just one more addition to that whole health focus for the Apple Watch.
Yeah, and that's a good follow-up for Health Focus. The activity app is now called Fitness, and obviously we know Apple has been really focused on the fitness part of the Apple Watch, and a lot of people love it, and that's what they use it for. So it's a completely redesigned activity app, and it's going to be doing all kinds of activities, including dancing as they demonstrate. So you saw her kind of getting in the groove of things, doing a little bit of the dance, and that's good exercise as well. So I think that's just going to continue to excel when it comes to that. Any comments on the health app, Chuck?
The dancing thing just terrifies me. I'm afraid this is going to just. It's going to cause more people to post more videos of themselves dancing as exercise that I really don't want to see. So, great for health. Not sure it's going to be so good for my eyes.
There you go. And then they added cycling directions. A lot of big focus on cycling with the Apple Watch as well as Apple Maps, which is great. And being able to find where you want to go and how it is and where the bike lanes are, if it's busy, if there's a graded hill or not. That's going to be great. But then the one that came across that was the funniest and interesting is the automatic hand washing detection. Being able to put your hand under a faucet and all of a sudden your watch senses, hey, you're washing your hands. Let me time it for you. And you just wash your hands. And as I saw him doing that, it was counting down and telling you, well done. Something you would use, Chuck?
David, this is one of those, it felt like, okay, we can do this. And so why not throw it in? But that seems to be something, if you've talked to the health professionals long before COVID-19, that was always one of the things I know my doctor always says that's one of the best ways to prevent, the common cold or the flu or whatever is wash your hands. Wash your hands often and wash your hands well. And as an aside, when COVID-19 started, Alton Brown, who you probably know from the Food Network, talked about how he had always wanted to do a hand washing video as part of his Good Eats show, and the producers would never let him do it because it's like, come on, you're supposed to be cooking. And his big thing is, of course, in food preparation, you need to wash your hands properly so you don't contaminate the food. So as much as we're all laughing about it, I think this is something that if people will pay attention to it, it's really, really important.
What do you think, Warren? Would you have you tried it?
No, I thought it would happen automatically, but I guess it doesn't. I might have. There must be something I have to turn on to get it to work, and I haven't done that yet. So but I have been washing my hands. So don't let that scare you.
Well, I figured that much.
The fact that the watch didn't tell me that I was washing my hands. It doesn't mean I'm not washing my hands. It's cool. And there. It could start to lead to other things, like brushing your teeth. You're supposed to do that for a certain amount of time. So maybe, I think there's apps out there already that could do that. These little things are nice. Will it get to be too much for humans to, have the technology tell you these things too much? Yeah. But for now, it's. I think it's just a direct response to the. We know it's a direct response to the COVID. So, we'll see what happens after COVID is hopefully gone or vaccinated, and see if people still use that, I guess.
And then privacy. Privacy was a big thing, and that was a big topic that towards the end of the keynote. The big thing that really stood out to me was the fact that now every app developer is going to have to put in a way that each app tells them what they're collecting, how things are happening, and how they're tracking you. So they have two boxes that would pop up. It would be a data linked to you or data used to track you, which is great. And every app is going to, I believe, has to comply with that. So they're really implementing a lot of these great things, and then cross app tracking, and it's great. I think it's great that they even continue on. Apple's been very, very serious about privacy, and I'm real pleased to see that it's enhanced even more. And we just mentioned a little earlier about the TikTok and the clipboard. So, Chuck, what do you think of the privacy discussion that Apple had?
I think this is just Apple iterating and continuing to improve its privacy stance. I love that fact. I know that it's a trade-off between inconvenience or interruption and security. And at some point, I wonder if Apple will start to put some controls in to turn off certain things. And they may already be in there now. I mean, Warren, you would know better than I do because you have the betas running. But I think it's a good thing. I mean, the whole world, everywhere you turn, it seems like your privacy is being taken from you one way or another. And so the more,
you should be aware of.
That's it. The more that you can get, the better.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Martin?
Yeah, we were talking before that I had the beta on my Mac, and Zoom wasn't allowing the access to the microphone and my AirPods. So I mean, I'm sure it'll be fixed, but I'm sure the reason why that happened is, it's Apple kind of taking, things that could access. That's their big thing, is any program that could access things from your human interface devices are going to be monitored a lot more, and it's going to be, their stance right now is basically a combination of, ask permission and notify the user of what's happening, and that's what they're doing. And it's good. A lot of people gave Catalina a little bit of a hard time because it was a little too much. It kept asking, and said, this is asking permission. Are you okay? And then, people started comparing it to Vista a little bit with that kind of thing. But I think they're learning a lot from it. And I think the way the iOS is doing it now is really cool, because it's just like a little tiny banner on top that says, this program's accessing this, and it's not that intrusive, and it's not asking you. It's not even asking you, it's just telling you at this point. So I think that's the direction they're going, is more informing the user rather than automatically just making it not work or asking.
Yeah, you would just talk about camera. There's going to be a new camera and microphone indicator from the tracking. So on the iPhone, there's actually going to be a little orange dot that'll appear just above the Wi-Fi bars, and it'll tell you that means that the camera is in use. And they're probably going to put some visual indicators in place as well to pop up and tell you, hey, your camera's in use. Hey, your microphone's being used. Are you aware? Because that's it's like going back to people always putting tape on their webcams on their laptops because they think we're going to turn their cameras on, in the corporate world, and which is far from what's ever going to happen. So, but that was why there was such a big market of having the sliders to cover the webcams too. You could buy those little sliders and put on top of them. But I guess I can't say I blame it. People are worried about privacy, and that's a good direction to go in as far as that kind of stuff. Did anybody have any more comments about that?
Just that, there have been some very limited cases of some of this being allegedly happening in real life. And then you have the movies and, what the kind of things they promote. And so, I don't think you can blame people for wondering. I mean, I have those little sliders on every one of my devices just because I'm not sure. And I also have this, and I've gotten to the point that, I throw it over the camera at night. Or during the day, especially if something is going on that I don't want to see, it just, unless somebody comes in here and does it, they can't defeat the analog device. And so, and who's to say that my camera couldn't be turned on without the little light coming on? And the additions to iOS and iPadOS, I think, are going to be great because right now you have plenty of apps saying, "Can we access your camera? Can we access your microphone?" And completely legitimately, by the way, that's fine. But you forget that maybe you gave access to that, and once you flip that switch, it's on. And there's no way to really take it off unless you dig through the settings and learn how to do it. And then, of course, when you want it, then it's not on for that particular app.
A couple more things before we wrap it up here. One thing that kind of stood out to me was the fact that they added an accessibility feature, which I thought was really interesting. It's in iOS 14 on the iPhone, and it lets you open up apps and more by tapping the back of your iPhone. And all you have to do is go into the settings and turn this on. Since most people don't have iOS 14 yet, I'm not going to really get to go detail how to do it, but you can go in and actually change a double tap or a triple tap on the back of the device and be able to, let's say, open an app or turn on a flashlight or whatever. You can set it just by telling it. Warren, did you try this at all?
I did. I turned it on. I tried a triple tap to go to home, and it worked the first time I tried it. You basically tap the back of it, and then it didn't work after that. Right now, I have a pretty hard case on the back on my phone. I'm wondering if that has, I wonder if that has something to do with it. So I'll have to play with it with no case on. To see if that makes a difference. But the one time it worked was cool. You could pretty much hold in your hand and with one finger just tap it a few times, and then it goes back to the I think there's a whole list of things you could tell it to do. But I think going back to the home for me would be the once it works, I would probably keep that on because that's actually pretty cool to go back to the home screen that way.
There's a lot of accessibility features. Chuck, did you have any thoughts that would come in handy for you?
I want to get my hands on it. I mean, I like the idea. I think Warren just brought up my biggest question, concern, whatever, and that is, since I keep a case on my phone, I know I'm not for a second worried about having to tap it too hard and damaging my phone, but how hard am I going to have to tap it through the case to get it to work, if it will work through a case? So I like the idea. I mean, I love the idea. Yeah,
it was kind of neat. I think it's something interesting, and it's great to see that Apple not only is making all of their devices accessible to the visually impaired, the handicapped, folks who have challenges in being able to use their devices, and people who don't have those challenges can take advantage of some of those features as well. So I think it's kind of neat that they do that. So last topic I wanted to talk about was the fact that we aren't obviously not talking too much about Mac OS because, of course, Big Sur also came out. There was quite a bit of discussion about that, but and the fact that Apple is now going to be switching to the ARM processors or the Apple Silicon. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because also the fact that iPhone and iPad apps will now be able to be cross-platform. So you'll be able to have your favorite iPhone or your iPhone or iPad app if the developer so chooses, and be able to manage that availability in both app stores as far as any of the apps, but a keyword is if the developer so chooses, because some developers may have an app that they want to keep it separate from the Mac. They might have their own app or things like that. Chuck, did you have any thoughts about when this was announced?
Just the idea that I can see apps. I can see iOS or iPad apps running on the Mac. I can't see Mac apps running on the iOS on iPad OS or iOS right now. I think it's fine. I think that if I were a developer, I would have to really take a good hard look at what kind of experience my app is providing on each platform or all three platforms, and say, okay, I think it's good enough. My iOS app is good enough to go over to the Mac. It'll do enough of what I want it to do, and it'll give the user enough experience. So I think this was a really interesting and great way for Apple to manage it, that it puts the control in the hands of the developer. So if they just want to develop one and make whatever compromises for whichever platform, great. And if they prefer to have separate apps that are optimized for those platforms, great. And I hope it stays that way.
Any thoughts, Warren?
I think I heard that if it's an iOS or iPadOS app, it's automatically going to get the ability to go on the Mac on Big Sur on ARM. So I don't know. I think they could opt out of doing that. So there's a lot of talk on, how is it going to work? The big question is touch interfaces, because iOS and iPad apps are based on touch, where that's probably not going to be the case on these Mac apps. So it's going to probably be a little weird. Yeah, some things are going to be a little weird on that. I keep thinking it's going to remind me of an emulator, I guess. You ever play with the iOS emulators on there? You would get they used to have that. That's what I think it's going to be like, which is kind of a strange, unless they figure out a better way to work it. It's kind of almost more like going to be like a widget than an actual program. It's just going to be a little thing that I can't see playing the games on there without touch. It's going to be weird. So we'll see how it goes. But I guess they figure, the hardware is going to be the same. Why not do it if you can? If you can.
Well, no, one other point, and this is not, I haven't really tested this out, but it did occur to me this week, thinking about the fact that you're going to be going back, theoretically, the apps can go back and forth, is looking at some of the apps on the Apple TV. And they're kind of like iOS apps, because you have a limited control surface, but you still have to click. And so I don't know. I'm not sure my opinion here is fully formed, but I feel like there's some potential learning to be done from Apple TV apps for iOS apps that someone wants to run on the Mac. And you may have to diagram that sentence to know where I'm going with it. But, we're talking about a lot of different interfaces here, and we're talking about, some that have a mouse or a trackpad. You have another one with the Apple TV that there's a quasi trackpad, a couple buttons, and a click. And then you have iOS, where you have touches and taps and swipes and gestures and everything. And so, trying to pull some of these together and learn the best pieces of each is an interesting challenge, I think, for developers and for Apple to build the support in for those interface elements.
Absolutely.
Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be interesting, definitely, for sure. One thing I did forget that we should talk about briefly here is the AirPods. They did add some enhancements to the AirPods, where it's going to be much more efficient automatic switching, which I can say hallelujah, because switching from your iPad to your iPhone to your Mac, it never seems to connect very quickly, and I'm super happy about that. And then they're also adding spatial audio, which is going to be for the AirPods Pro, gives a dynamic head tracking, so it'll give you sound channels in the correct place and give you a surround experience. And they talked about that and showed a graphic of that. So I was happy to see that too. They also added headphone combinations for iOS 14, which introduced which allows users to select the sound effect they prefer. According to Apple, it's individual hearing to help music, phone calls, that kind of stuff. So they're going to be able to add that too. But the thing that stood out the most was the AirPods, and the automatic switching, I think, was a good thing to hear. So any thoughts on that, Chuck? I'm anxious to see how it works. I mean, I'm sitting here, I've got an iPad here, I've got an iPhone here, I've got a Mac here. And so how is it going to know which one I want to do what with? Now, it makes perfect sense. If I pick up the iPhone is going to tell my ecosystem that, he has his iPhone in his hand, so the odds are pretty good that's what he wants. But what if I'm watching a movie on the iPad, but I want to pick up the iPhone and check, IMDb for, what I'm watching on the iPad? So what happens then? So it's going to be just a very interesting implementation.
With the spatial awareness, I have a pair of headphones that I got for review from Audeeze, AUDEEZE, and they are similar. They're basically head tracking, and they're more for gaming. And so I reviewed them, and it's going to be an interesting thing. It's a weird sensation at first. You put these things on, and if you move your head down to the left, a little more noise. It kind of tilts with the sound tilts with your head, which is kind of neat for games. It's kind of neat for probably movies. It's not really neat for anything other than that. I tried podcasting and it just sounded like Chuck was whispering in my ear. I didn't really like it that much. But it's
I'm damn glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm like, who's whispering in my ear? But it's neat. So I think gaming is a big thing. That's what the spatial technology is for. It's basically for gaming. So you could hear, if you're playing a game, you could hear like somebody sneaking up behind you or something shooting to your left compared to your right. So that might be their move to kind of get a little more into that, maybe with Apple TV. We'll see.
All right. With that, let's you guys anything else, and we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios, and you can subscribe in your favorite podcatcher, including Apple Podcasts and many others. But better yet, go to our website, intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter @DaveG65. Chuck, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, giving us your insights on the WWDC. Where can people find you?
Come on over to MacVoices.com. That's where we talk to lots of interesting people about Apple and tech. And you can find me on Twitter as @ChuckJoyner. Thanks for having me. It's always a blast.
Yes, I appreciate you being here. That was a great show last night. I was bummed I missed it, the other night, I should say. And hopefully you'll join more. You have some great live sessions that you do with a lot of the folks, and that's a lot of fun. So, Warren, they find you on Facebook, right? Where are they going to find you?
Yeah, find me on Facebook. Chuck, it was definitely a pleasure having you again. It's always good to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's always fun, Warren from the Beach House.
That's right.
That's my show name, my new show name, Warren from the Beach House.
The Warren at the Beach House. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you again soon.